What do you get when a math educator, an entrepreneur, and a neurodiversity advocate walks into the online tutoring world? You get Katie Walker, a powerhouse who's built a business that supports learners with confidence and care. But today, we're actually stepping out of the world of math to talk about something a little different. How Katie took everything that she learned from starting her own tutoring business and turned it into a step-by-step guide for how to create an LLC to help other entrepreneurs do the same thing. So, welcome, Katie. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here, Joanne.
So let's start at the beginning. How did you go from being a tutor and currently a tutor to writing a book on LLCs?
Yeah, I think it's always doing the next right thing, and what seems like the right thing to do next is just what my guiding philosophy. So yeah, I was a classroom teacher for a very long time, realized that I wanted to control my own destiny, became a tutor, started my own business, and just sought out lots of coaches. I was a member of Jumpstart many years ago. That was part of what helped me define my niche in the neurodiversity space. So very grateful for that experience. But everywhere I went, nobody wanted to talk about the boring stuff. Wait, what's an EIN? Like, how do I get one? Do I need one? What's a business bank
Mm.
account? How do I set it up? What does that mean? All of those like very basic unsexy things like we don't want to talk about in other aspects of business coaching. We're always, how do we get more students? How do we make more money? How do we do a better job delivering services to our families and serve people better and more? But nobody wants to talk about, but how do you get a registered agent and why do you need one? So
Yeah. And I can explain on my part, like, why do we go into it? Because we have a worldwide
absolutely,
audience, right? And the laws change state by state.
absolutely.
And there's the legal aspect, because if people do take it as legal advice and the law changes, there could be like repercussions, right? So there is
Right.
a scary
Right.
part
There is a
of being
scary,
able to
I totally
share.
get why
Yeah.
businesses, coaching businesses like yours shy away from talking about it. I understand it
Yeah.
100%. But it's also hard, right? Like you're a little tiny solopreneur wanting to protect your business that you're starting. So you're thinking maybe you need an LLC rather than just being a sole proprietorship. You're thinking about making that transition. And then you go get a quote from an attorney, and it's thousands of dollars to get your LLC formed if you go to an attorney. You
Oh,
can go to
wow.
an online provider like Zen Business or some of those, and they're going to be a little bit cheaper than going like directly to an attorney.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if, and I think that's the part that was frustrating to me is solopreneurs don't have a lot of extra money usually sitting around to invest.
No.
And so wanting to provide an affordable, clear roadmap. I use my teacher skills when writing the book, thinking about what do people need? They need to apply their knowledge. They need examples. They don't want it to just be theory. They need a glossary so that they can look up words that they don't understand and have it be in
Yeah.
plain language. All of those kind of teacher aspects I brought in and put into this book, but really it just came out of that desire to serve. And I think the other
Yeah.
piece as a tutoring business owner, you are limited in some ways by the time that you have in the day, right? If you're especially if you're teaching one-on-one, you get booked solid, you can't serve more students, and then potentially you might feel like your income is tapped. And so for me, realizing that creating a book is different. It's creating an asset, a different type of income stream into my
Yep.
business. And so that part of it excited me. And I think people think, oh, it's passive income. Passive income requires work.
On
I
the front
don't.
end, yeah, on the front end, especially when you're writing a book, I found like you have all the work that goes in on the front end, and there's
Right,
a lot of it with passive
right.
income right on the
Because
front
you've
end
written a
that.
book as well.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, 8 of them. Yeah. So yeah, there's a ton of work that goes in on that front end, but then you also have to keep the momentum going with the marketing piece of it.
Right.
Otherwise, that stream of income dies down. And then you're getting like $15 a month from like Amazon if you're
And
lucky.
you're like,
So
great. Okay. I spent a year of my life and heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears to create this book. But that was another realization that I had, just my own learning in the journey was because I have a community of other people who have helped me learn how to self-publish my book. I had to get coaching to learn how to do that. I
mhm.
didn't know how to do that in the past. And realizing that actually all the skills that I know from my tutoring business are directly the same, right? It's still the
Yeah.
same. And I think that's something I just want to encourage people who are tutoring. You're learning transferable skills to other
Yes.
business areas, right? There's people who are like, oh, I don't know how to set up an automated email to follow up on a form. Oh, I know how to do that, right? That's something I
Yeah.
can do, which in tutoring world, it might be an enrollment or an interest form that you have on your website, right? But in publishing, it might be some giving them a copy of the book. Same thing. You have a free download that you provide for people who are interested in your services, for example, as a lead magnet. It's exactly the same. You still
Yeah.
need people to come buy your services. You still need people to come buy your book. It's exactly the same. So just
It is.
recognizing those like crossovers
And you need to
from,
build an audience too, right? Especially when you start covering a new topic, it's you got to now start building that audience for that specific thing that you are focusing on.
yeah.
It's not just, you can't just reuse the list that you created inside of like your tutoring business because not everybody who tutors understanding that difference, right? Because everyone who's
Right.
looking for math tutoring, they're not going to be interested in a book about
No,
LLCs,
no,
right? So
no,
now I
I'm not
got to
going to
build
tell
a
them about
new,
LLCs at all.
I need to build a new
No.
audience.
But I realized I do know a lot of small business owners who
Yeah.
are solopreneurs and even a couple of my early readers already have their LLC, but there's things that they didn't do that they skipped in the process, in the full process. They're like, maybe I should go back and do that. Because
Yeah.
we talk about things like intellectual property management and trademarking certain things, right?
Yeah.
Going and filing your articles of organization, like all of those different things that maybe aren't required by your state, but that might be a good idea. And you put on your like, I'll do that later list. So, even people who already have their LLC, but are in that solopreneur or maybe have a very small team phase, have found the book really helpful because
Yeah.
I talk about all kinds of things in there like that aren't just, yes, we have to get your actual LLC, but then there's this whole other to-do list that comes after that, right? Your EIN,
Yeah.
your business
Mhm.
bank account. Why is that so important to separate your business assets and your personal assets? And that you can actually, people might not realize that if you don't do that, you can actually basically invalidate your LLC because the government will be like, you're acting as if this is all just you. So I'm not going to treat, it's called piercing the corporate veil. Like you basically make it so that you don't have it. It's like it doesn't exist. The liability protection goes away if you don't keep your assets from your personal separate from your business. So things like that people might not realize,
Yeah.
oh, I got my LLC, I'm good. There's a few more things that we need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And while today, everyone, while we're talking about this topic, it is important to know that we're just having a conversation around it. We're not actually saying this is exactly all the steps that you absolutely need to take. This is a conversation about LLCs, not that
Yes.
this is legal advice
No.
for your LLC. So
And
do due diligence, do your
yes.
research before you do it. Creating an LLC really isn't that expensive to be able to create
No.
right out of the gate. So don't let that fear like stop you from doing it. But I did want to put that little caveat inside of there that,
Yeah,
you
we
know,
have a disclaimer at the beginning of the book as well as throughout the book. I think just pointing out certain moments where you are building your business team. If you think about, oh, I like one of the things we talk about is you need a trusted accountant in your life when you're running a business.
yeah,
And like that you're over time you're building your team of people and that might include an attorney that you ask for advice for. That might include an accountant. That there's these different kind of professional advice does have its place
yep,
and you can still learn a lot, and that was the point of the guide, right? That you can learn a
yeah,
lot to get enough information to get started and point you in the right direction to get more information. And
exactly.
yeah, my book does not have specific information about states, which I know some people are really upset about, and I'm like, there are 50 different laws
Yeah. And then
that
countries, right? Now let's move into the
right.
country,
And I'm
you
not
know,
even,
so
I'm only talking to US audiences too, right? And so I had somebody ask me, like, oh, can you do this for Canada? And I was like, I know nothing about Canada. Like, I'm
right.
sorry. Like, this book isn't for Canada. Yes, there's stuff in there that would be helpful because there's more generic, like, brand and how can you establish your brand voice and kind of more like just business stuff that's in there. But the LLC specific piece, I have no idea what the laws in Canada are. All I've talked about is like what's true across the United States. And then some specific states that are like known to be a little bit different because some people do choose to form their LLC in a state other than their own. That might be something people don't know. You don't have to choose your own state. You can choose a different state. That has implications for how you operate and what your rules are in your state, in the state that you're registered in, if you're operating out of a different state. So lots to consider, but starting by learning, and that's to me like I'm a nerdy book lover, let's be honest, even though as a math teacher, like I love to read, I love to learn. I'm always trying to just grow and learn. And so to me, books are just like a natural part of that, right?
Yeah.
Because you can, it's $20, $30 and you, or free from the library, and you can get the book
Mhm.
and learn from that person
Yeah.
or entertain yourself too. I do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's a lot of myths around LLCs. What's one big misconception that you hope that this book clears up?
It's a great question. I think the biggest misconception that I would say is that it's an automatic protection, that automatically by having an LLC, everything is protected. And that's not true. Because if you do not follow the rules in terms of what you separating your assets and your documentation and keeping and following all the like legislation around LLCs, whether it's for your state or just the more general LLC in the country, that it doesn't actually protect you. And so that, and even if you don't have an LLC, my argument would be best practice is to have a separate business bank account to get an
Yeah.
EIN. It's free to apply from the IRS. It's super easy. It takes 5 minutes to fill out the information online. You get a PDF sent back to you. It's super fast. I learned the hard way that if you have an EIN as a sole proprietor, pro tip, you need a new one when you form an LLC. So it means getting new business bank accounts and everything, but it's worth it because then you have the protection of and that separation of your personal assets and the business assets. And I think the second one related to that would be that you need to read the fine print on any loans or credit cards that you take out in your business's name, because some of them you might still actually be the one on the hook if your business doesn't have its own credit. So back up a couple steps. When you, as a young person, are first getting credit, you have no credit history. And so you have to get credit to build credit. You got to prove to the credit bureaus and that you are going to pay your bills on time. When you're a new business, same thing. You don't have a history as a business. And so if you go to get a credit card, you might be applying for under a business, but if you read the terms and conditions, it could be that you as the person are actually guaranteeing that. Just if you as a young person don't have a lot of credit history, they might ask for someone who does have credit history to guarantee your loan or your credit card. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is they are like, oh, I got my LLC. I'm going to go get my business credit card. If my business goes out of business and I have all this debt, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
might.
it does. Yeah.
And so that piece is like the second to the first, right? That they go hand in
Yeah.
hand. You have to understand the importance of the separation, but then that other piece of you actually could be on the hook for that debt if your
Yeah.
business were to fold.
Yeah. Well, you dive into the different LLC types in the book. What should a solo tutor know about choosing between a sole proprietorship and a single member LLC?
There's a lot of what you have as a sole proprietor in terms of taxes that is pretty much the same.
Mhm.
You can have as a sole proprietor, you can get an EIN. You can have, which is also EIN is employee ID number. And even if you don't have employees, sometimes they call it a TIN or tax ID number. And that for your business, you can register your business with your local municipality and then get a business bank account and be a sole proprietor without having an LLC. Then you can use all of the tax benefits of being able to pay for your expenses before you pay taxes. And just again, take a couple steps backwards to understand how taxes work. If you're a W-2 employee, you get paid by your employer, and before you see your check, they take the taxes out, and then you get your money. When you're a business owner, you collect all the money, and then you pay your expenses, and then at the end of the year, you pay tax on the net income or what's left over. And so this is a big advantage to being a business because you are paying taxes on only what's left over, whereas in a W-2 situation, you're having to pay all your bills after you pay your taxes. So it's the other way around. And that's true for sole proprietorship and an LLC. I think the LLC, if you're going to have employees, you definitely want to have an LLC. And I would say, even if you're going to hire 1099 contractors, and be careful about that. My book does not go into that, but just be careful about independent contractor and employee designations. But you have to have an EIN and I would recommend an LLC if you're going to have employees. But the LLC really is that it's a layer of protection. Like I said, if you're, especially as you grow and you have more clients and more, like I said, if you have people working for you, that it's that layer of protection over your personal assets so that if someone were to sue you, they can't take your house, for example. If you're a sole proprietor, there's no protection for you. You're operating as yourself, which when you're starting, I think is fine. But as you grow, and there's no hard line of here's the moment when like you've transitioned from sole proprietorship being fine to needing an LLC, other than, like I said, if you're going to hire employees, then that's definitely a place to do that. But that piece of the taxes, I think people don't understand that you have the same benefits, but the LLC just provides that extra layer of protection. If you also, I would say, if you're in business with someone else, which most tutors aren't, most tutors are like a solopreneur style. But if you are in a partnership, like you and someone are wanting to start a business, you definitely want to have some form of LLC so that you can have a legal document that spells out what's the rules for who gets paid what, who's responsible for what expenses, what happens if the business needs to close. All of those terms are legally set up. So I would say that for most people who are starting out, you probably don't need an LLC. And you should learn about them so that when your business grows, you're ready and you're empowered with the knowledge to know, oh, this feels like the right time for me.
Yeah.
Because it is a headache if you have an EIN. Like I said, you have to get a new EIN, you have to open all new business bank accounts with that new EIN. So it's definitely front end work, like we talked about before. There's some work, but then the benefits are there in terms of the protection that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about protecting the things that you've worked hard for. And the good news is, I've never heard of a tutor who actually got sued by a student or a client or a parent for the tutoring services that they provided, but you just never know. So this adds that extra layer of protection. And there's also a difference between online tutoring versus like
Yes.
in-person tutoring, and
Yes.
how big do you want to grow your business, all of those kinds of things. Continue to find somebody who's going to be, in your area that can help you when it comes to getting an accountant, or if you have a friend who is a lawyer, that might be a good start too as well. But yeah, just at least get your head wrapped around the idea of what is an
Yes.
LLC. And I'm just so curious to know, like, we got to a point where we actually needed to form an S corp for my business because it was making so much money.
Yes.
And the taxes were
Congratulations.
gonna,
That's a
are
great
you
thing.
going, it is a great thing. Are, are you going to do a follow-up book about S corps?
There is a plan for a follow-up book. Yes, because the current book has two kind of bonus chapters that are previewing some of the bigger topics. The book goes into some, like I said, boring but really important things in terms of hiring and firing processes, systems, operations, the things that you need as you grow if you have a team of people. If you're going to stay just you and that works for you and your goals in your life, great. But for those of us who have kind of empire aspirations for our businesses and how many people we want to serve and the impact we want to have, like those kinds of things, we want to have this huge business that can serve hundreds of kids. We definitely are going to need to consider at some point transitioning to that S corp
Yeah.
structure because tax
Mhm.
wise, it's so much better because then you're not paying double taxes basically on the money that you're paying yourself as the owner.
Yeah.
But yes, there is plans for a follow-up book as well as a complete workbook. So with my book, there's a free download that has like a little mini workbook that has some activities and exercises, but there's so many more that I like couldn't put into that need that again, thinking from that teacher perspective, right? We need to apply our learning. We need to take action. A book that we read and do nothing with that information, what was the point of that? I guess
Right.
entertainment at that point. But if you're
Yeah.
not going to take action, and that's why in every chapter there's reflection questions, and every chapter there's like at least one activity, but there will be a follow-up workbook that will have more comprehensive activities. And then, like I said, a follow-up book where we will talk about things like how do you decide if S Corp or C Corp designation is the thing to do. But for people who are just starting out wrapping their heads around an LLC, which is really who the audience of this book is meant for,
Yeah.
ooh, I've heard about that. I should probably learn something about that. Or I'm thinking about that. I'm at that point in my journey, then this book is for you, for sure.
I love it. Okay, so what chapter or section do you wish every tutor would read twice?
I think, honestly, chapter 1 is the chapter where we talk about the different types and designations and making sure you really understand what's appropriate for you. Because I don't want the advice that works for Joanne and Joanne's company to be the advice that's for somebody else and their company, because you need to really take into consideration your individual goals, your individual needs, and then everything
Right.
else stems from that. And it
Yeah.
might be that you read this and you go, you know what? I actually don't need an LLC right now. I feel
Hmm.
comfortable with a sole proprietorship. There's still things that you can learn from the rest of the book as you move forward in your business journey, but I certainly want people to make the right choice with the right kind of designation for their company from the beginning. So to me, that
Yeah.
is the most important chapter. The rest of it is there's lots of gold nuggets in there and lots of really great resources, things to think about, things to put on the back burner, but bring back later, to come back
Mhm.
to the book later. And I think the second one that I would recommend is there's an appendix, which you're like, why do you want to reread the appendix? But the two appendices in the back, one is a list of tools. So throughout the book, I talk about all kinds of different tools that you might need for different aspects of your business. And it's all organized into type of tool in one of the appendices. And then the other one is the references, where I got
Mhm.
all this information, because you are going to need to want to read more after you read the book, because you're going to need to actually go read the like legalese version after you've read the like simplified version. And so I don't want people to ignore the references list, because every single one of those is very powerful reading. So that would be my second one if I had to say, other than chapter 1.
Very helpful. Where can people grab the book and how can they stay connected with you?
Great. Yes. On Amazon. Soon it will be distributed by the print book will be distributed in other places. But right now, Amazon's the easiest place to grab the book. And it is Start an LLC, and it's published by Catherine Walker. And then once you get the book, there's a QR code inside that you can scan, and it takes you to a form where you can give me your information. You'll get the free downloads, and you can then agree, if you're interested in staying connected, to be one of the first readers of the advanced book when it comes out or before it comes out, to get free copies of the workbook before, to be my like sounding board and feedback for future books. You can also follow my author profile on Amazon, and then you'll get notified of future publications. And when you go to Amazon, you can click on my name and click follow, and then you can hear about books when they come out on Amazon.
I love it. And you're going to be speaking at Impact
Yes,
8,
I am
Get More
so
Students in an
excited.
AI World. Ooh, ooh, I'm
Yes.
so excited too.
So for the
So,
people who come to Impact, I'm going to have a special bonus ready by then for people who come to Impact and learn about my talk. So I have a sneak peek out of the workbook that I'm going to give out for free to the people who come to Impact. There's a little
I love
incentive to
that.
come to my talk at Impact, and you can get an extra free download that's not available anywhere else.
I love it. Any final words of encouragement for tutors who are kind of dreaming about going that next level with their own business?
I think one is everything is figure outable. That I think it can sound really intimidating, but just trusting in yourself and your own ability to figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, to find someone who can help you to figure it out, and to not let the kind of intimidation factor of, ooh, an LLC and all of that stand in your way of being able to do this if that's what you feel is appropriate for your business at it's the stage that it's at. So everything is figure outable,
I
is what
love
I would
that,
say.
Katie. Thank you so much for sharing your story, walking us through the journey behind this book. It's clear that this isn't just a guide, it's really a lifeline for tutors who are ready to take that next step with clarity and confidence. So, for anyone who's been thinking, I should really make my business official, or I have no idea where to start with the legal stuff, Katie's book is the place to begin. You don't have to figure it out alone. So, thanks again for being here, Katie, and for making the process of starting an LLC feel just a little less overwhelming for the rest of us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joanne.